Trump stood before the house, a relic clinging to existence through sheer stubbornness. Queens, once vibrant and alive, now felt like a faded postcard, and this abandoned mansion on the street corner was its most forlorn fragment. The shutters dangled like broken wings, the paint had peeled away to reveal rotting wood, and the roof, punctured by time, gaped with holes through which the wind howled like a wounded beast. Tomorrow, bulldozers would arrive to erase this place from the earth, turning it into a soulless parking lot or warehouse. But today, Trump was here, driven by an inexplicable urge, a magnetic pull drawing him back to his childhood. Something whispered that he needed to see this house one last time before it vanished forever. Perhaps it was a longing for something lost, or perhaps mere curiosity to glimpse who he had been before he became the man the world knew. He pushed the door, and it yielded reluctantly, creaking on rusty hinges as if guarding its secrets. Inside, the air smelled of dampness, mildew, and something faintly familiar, like the scent of an old blanket he'd wrapped himself in as a child. The floorboards groaned under his steps, dust swirled in the shafts of light piercing through cracked windows, and the walls, stained with moisture, seemed alive, breathing. The room was nearly empty. A few broken chairs, a leaning wardrobe in the corner, scraps of wallpaper chased across the floor by the wind like autumn leaves. But at the center, like a sentinel of forgotten time, stood a piano. Old, cloaked in a thick layer of dust, its lacquer cracked and keys yellowed, it looked as though time had spared it out of reverence. This was his mother's piano, Mary Ann's, the one that filled the house with music on long-ago evenings, music that slowed the heart and stirred dreams of something greater. Trump froze, staring at the instrument. He hadn't been here in decades, yet the piano seemed to wait for him, like a loyal dog abandoned by its master. He stepped closer, ran a finger along the lid, leaving a trail in the dust, and felt a pang in his chest. Memories, buried under years of deals, disputes, and headlines, began to surface, like shadows stirred by his touch. He saw his mother, her slender fingers gliding over the keys, heard her voice humming Scottish ballads from the distant islands of her birth. Back then, he was just Donald, a tousle-haired boy sitting at her feet, entranced by the music. In those moments, the world felt infinite, and dreams seemed attainable without struggle. He recalled a stormy night when his mother played this melody to soothe him, frightened by thunder. He remembered her stories of her youth in Scotland, of the sea that sang her lullabies, of a village where everyone knew everyone. Back then, he didn't grasp the weight of those stories. Now he did. He sat on the rickety stool, which creaked in protest under his weight. The keys gazed at him like old friends he'd betrayed, choosing contracts and skyscrapers over them. He hadn't played since childhood, dismissing music as a waste of time, something that brought no profit. But now, in this room filled with ghosts of the past, his fingers reached for the keys. He pressed one. The sound, hoarse but alive, shattered the silence, then another, and another. A simple melody, a children's lullaby his mother played at bedtime, began to form, like a mosaic coming to life under his hands. It wasn't just music, it was a key, unlocking doors to a forgotten world. With each chord, memories crashed over him like waves. He saw himself running through these rooms, heard the laughter of his siblings, smelled the fresh cut grass wafting through open windows. Life was simpler then. No cameras, no reporters, no endless headlines, no burden of a name he'd made louder than any other. He recalled stealing an apple from a neighbor's garden, and how his mother, upon learning, made him apologize but then hugged him, saying mistakes were part of the journey. He remembered fixing a bicycle with his father in the yard, the usually stern man laughing when the wheel refused to align. Back then, he was just a boy dreaming of something bigger, unaware of the cost it would demand. But the melody faltered. His fingers froze, stumbling on something odd. One key, F-sharp, produced no sound. He pressed again, harder, but heard only a dull thud. Curiosity, dulled by years of routine, flared within him. He leaned in, inspected the piano, and noticed the lid over the strings was slightly raised. Lifting it, He found something unexpected, a tattered notebook wrapped in yellowed cloth. His heart raced. This wasn't mere debris. It had been hidden deliberately. He carefully extracted the notebook. Its cover, once red, had faded to pale pink, but he could still make out the inscription in his mother's neat handwriting, "For Donald." He opened it, and the brittle pages, fragile as autumn leaves, unveiled a secret. It wasn't just sheet music but a diary, where Mary Ann had poured her thoughts, dreams, and fears. She wrote of her desire to give her children a better future, of how music saved her in her darkest days, but of her hope that her son would find something in life beyond money and power. Scattered among the words were sketches of melodies, including the lullaby he'd just played. But the final page held another surprise. Taped to the paper was an old key engraved with the letter M. Beside it, a brief note: "The attic. Find my heart." A chill ran down Trump's spine. He didn't recall an attic in this house, but his mother's words, written decades ago, felt like a command he couldn't ignore. He rose, clutching the notebook and key, and searched for a staircase. He found it in a far corner, behind an old wardrobe he shoved aside with unexpected strength. A narrow wooden ladder led into darkness. Climbing up, he pushed open a trapdoor, entering a cramped space cluttered with boxes and old furniture. A small round window let in faint light, enough to spot a dusty chest in the corner. The key fit perfectly. Inside the chest were treasures his mother must have cherished: letters from her parents in Scotland, family photographs, a small wooden box engraved with musical notes. Opening the box, he froze. Inside lay a brooch shaped like a treble clef, and beneath it, another note: "This house is my gift to you. Save it, if you find the strength." Trump felt his chest tighten. His mother knew he'd return. She believed he'd remember. He descended, still gripping the brooch. The piano stood where he'd left it, silent but now alive, as if it held not just music but secrets. He sat again, and the melody flowed effortlessly, deeper now, laced with new hues, as if he played not only for himself but for his mother, for this house, for all who'd once lived here. Memories flickered, fixing his bicycle in the yard, hiding from rain under the porch, listening to his mother's tales of far-off Scotland. But now, new visions joined them: children who could come here to learn music, laugh, dream. His thoughts were interrupted by a strange sound, a rustle from the basement. He froze, listening. The house was abandoned, but the rustle came again, louder. Curiosity mixed with faint fear. Grabbing a flashlight from his car, he descended the creaking stairs to the basement. There, amid old boxes, he saw something unexpected: an ancient gramophone, dusty but intact. Beside it lay a record labeled Mary Ann, 1940. He played it, and the room filled with his mother's voice, singing the same lullaby he'd played upstairs. It was a message from the past, as if she were still here, guiding him. But the gramophone wasn't the only find. Behind it, in the wall, was a hidden niche containing a bundle. Unwrapping it, Trump found old blueprints of the house, hand-drawn. One bore a note: "Music lives in the walls." Then he noticed something odd: the blueprints marked rooms he didn't recall. The house held more than it seemed. He returned upstairs, tapping walls as he went. In one room, behind peeling wallpaper, he found a concealed door leading to a small chamber he'd never known existed. Inside were old instruments: a violin, a flute, even a small accordion. On a table lay another note from his mother: "For those who come after us." This was her legacy, a dream she hadn't lived to fulfill. But there was more. In the corner stood a dusty painting. Wiping it clean, he saw a portrait of a young woman, strikingly like his mother, signed Elizabeth, 1920. It was his grandmother, known only from fleeting stories. On the back, another inscription: "This house was built for music. Don't let it die." Trump's heart clenched. This house wasn't just his childhood, it was part of a greater legacy his family had guarded for generations. A thought struck him, sudden but clear as a sunbeam. This house must not vanish. It wouldn't become a parking lot. It would be something more: a place where children from poor neighborhoods, like he once was, could find hope. A music school. Free. A place where every child could touch the freedom he'd felt in those distant years. He envisioned it vividly: restored rooms, new pianos, violins, guitars, teachers who'd inspire. Children whose eyes would shine as his had when he listened to his mother. He stepped outside. The world around him transformed. The wind still roamed the wasteland, but now it felt warm, carrying a promise of new beginnings. He pulled out his phone and began calling. Architects, charities, old friends all needed to hear his plan. But the path was thorny. City officials refused to alter demolition plans, citing bureaucratic hurdles. Local developers, who'd already bought the land, threatened lawsuits. Even some of his old allies doubted, calling the project a waste of time. But Trump, adept at breaking walls, didn't yield. He met with officials, persuaded, argued, found legal loopholes. He sold assets to fund the restoration, shocking his advisors. For the first time, he acted not for profit but for an idea. Yet doubts crept in. One day, standing in a half-ruined room, he felt his resolve waver. What if this was a mistake? What if the house was better off demolished? But then he saw something in the corner, an old photograph, fallen from under a floorboard. It showed his mother, young, smiling, with the piano behind her. On the back, in her hand, "Donald, be braver than the world." It was all he needed. Restoration began 3 months later, but surprises continued. During repairs, workers found a tin box buried in the foundation, likely hidden when the house was built. Inside were handwritten sheet music and a letter signed by his grandmother Elizabeth. She wrote that the house was built by her father, a Scottish immigrant who dreamed of a place where music would live forever. She urged her descendants to preserve it if the world grew too loud. This discovery was Trump's final push. He realized this house wasn't just his past but a legacy he had to pass on. Problems persisted. A developer, unwilling to concede, hired lawyers to contest the land's ownership. The case went to court, and at one point the project seemed doomed. But then, an unexpected turn. An elderly man, claiming to be a former neighbor of the Trumps, appeared at the hearing with documents proving the land was bequeathed for public use in the 1920s. His name was James, and he recalled Mary Ann playing the piano for neighborhood children. His testimony turned the tide, and the court ruled in Trump's favor. Restoration resumed. Architects preserved the house's old charm, but inside it transformed: bright classrooms, new instruments, walls adorned with murals of musical notes. The secret room became the school's heart, housing the instruments Mary Ann left for the future. The gramophone took pride of place in the hall, and her record played at the opening. Elizabeth's portrait hung in the main room, and the treble clef brooch became the school's emblem. The school opened a year later, and on the first day, dozens of children crossed its threshold. They sat at pianos, picked up violins, learned to sing. Their laughter filled the house that had been silent so long. Trump stood aside, watching, feeling for the first time that he'd done something real. But the story didn't end there. Months later, a student named Liam found another note in the secret room, tucked inside a violin case. Written in Mary Ann's hand, it read, "Music is a bridge between hearts. Let this house be that bridge." Inspired, Liam composed his first melody, performed at the school's debut concert. That simple, vibrant tune became the school's anthem. Whoa! The house, meant to vanish, became the start of something greater. It stood as a symbol that even in a world of walls, there was room for music. And somewhere within those walls, Mary Ann still sang her lullaby, a melody that would never fade. Trump, standing at the school's threshold, realized he'd built not a wall but a bridge.